by just upon a smile.
So you stayed here with your parents for quite a long time, you know. So while you were famous and prosperous, you were still living upstairs.
That's right, yeah. And that was like where I wrote most of my songs. I mean, Wild World was written upstairs, you know, and so many of the songs.
Did the fans know you were up there?
A lot of fans used to come to the door, and my dad used to look after them, you know. He was kind of amused by it all.
And when you moved out, where did you go to at that point?
I finally moved away from here, I think around 73. I became an exile, because, you know, tax-wise in those days. And I went to live in Brazil.
Why
Rio.
Brazil? Rio?
Rio, because it was as far away as possible from everywhere else.
Miles from nowhere, guess I'll take my time. Oh yeah, to reach there.
Cat Stevens lived an isolated life in Rio for 6 years, occasionally making forays back into the world for stadium tours and recording sessions. It was during one of these trips, on a visit to the head of his American record company, that a turning point took place in his life.
When he was around, he'd always drop by and we'd have a meal or something at home. And he went out for a swim, and you know, we didn't think much of it.
It was a perfectly average day in Southern California. Let's go and see some friends, let's go to the beach, let's go in the water.
Miles from nowhere, not a soul inside. Oh yeah.
I was in the ocean, and suddenly I'd lost it. I had no power to swim anymore.
I have my freedom.
So I had nobody by me. Yet, I did have someone.
The ones that I choose.
And I called on that someone. I said, God, if you save me, I'll work for you.
I won't need it when I reach the end.
And with that, the giant wave came at his back, and he was almost instantly on the sand.
Yes, I'll take my time. Oh, yeah. To reach there.
What arose within me was my deep down conviction and belief that ultimately there is a higher control over one's life.
And wasn't it quite soon after this very profound near-drowning experience that you suddenly found yourself in possession of a copy of the Quran? How did that happen?
It was my brother who gave me the Quran as a gift. It was a bit precious because of that. Not only that, he said something to the effect that perhaps there's something in here that people have overlooked. It was a book which I couldn't put down. And it was difficult to get away from the message. No matter what I had tried to say in my songs, I realized it was part of a shadow. Here was a light, a real light, something supernatural and divine.
So you had this revelation, but it was several years more before you finally converted. When did that happen?
It was something that happened in the mosque. And, you know, up to that point I'd been reading the Quran, but this was the first time I'd ever heard the call to prayer and you know, and the atmosphere. And I just, when they asked me, well, who are you? It was the first time I ever said, I'm a Muslim. And I suddenly, at one moment, realized that everything that the Quran was telling me, or guiding me to, I accepted. To some people, it may have seemed like an enormous jump, to make. For me, it was a gradual dawning. And my songs had already primed me, in a way, in preparation for this. I saw my destiny and my prediction come true. I listen to my words, but they fall far below. Same mistake. No, never, never, never.
Did the music take you? Did the music help you to get to the end of that journey?
Music was like my religion. And I was as devoted to it as anyone could be. I was a bit of a monk in a way, in that I didn't go to parties. I was kind of exclusively for the art. But later, we realized that we cannot guide our life by our songs, because after a while, you have to get down to the job of actually dealing with things which affect you and which you can't write about and you can't sing away.
Yes, but it's interesting how music delivered you to that point. And then...
Let me go.
Yes.
I was 17. You were working for Matthew and Son. The Beatles met the Queen. And I wrote, I'm gonna get me a gun, yeah, yeah. It was like a dream in the star machine. Oh no, is it so? Is it so? I never wanted to be a star. I never wanted to travel far. I only wanted a little bit of love so I could put a little love in my heart.
The music business was so full of things like, competition and greed and fornication and everything that, you expect. Those things surrounded it, and I had to get away from that. Because if I was going to do the change, which I'd written about, which I'd sung about, then I couldn't do it in that environment.
At that time in his life, he was rich, he was famous, women, wealth. He kind of had everything, and he'd done everything. And I can see that perhaps he didn't want to be him anymore. He didn't want to be Cat Stevens anymore.
Throughout this period, as he was studying the Quran, Cat Stevens identified with the story of Joseph, a man who, not unlike this increasingly reluctant pop star, was bought and sold in the marketplace.
Reading the chapter of Joseph was one of the big turning points. Here you have an incredible story about this prophet and all the trials that he went through. And that was something to do with knowing yourself and looking at how people perceive you and how sometimes people misunderstand you.
And then you took that name, you took the name Yusuf.
I did. I took the name Joseph, actually, to begin with. And then one of my teachers, who was kind of teaching me the basics of Arabic, said, why don't you use the name Yusuf,
At Wembley Arena on the 22nd of November 1979, Yusuf Islam made his final appearance as Cat Stevens.
It's not time to make a change. Just relax, take it easy. You're still young, that's your fault. There's so much you have to know. Find a girl and settle down. If you want, you can marry. Look at me. I am old, but I'm happy.